The cosmos has a way of delivering its most profound mysteries wrapped in the most ordinary packages. And right now, racing through our solar system at impossible speeds, there's something that has turned everything we thought we knew about interstellar visitors completely upside down. What started as routine observations of a distant speck of light has evolved into one of the most unsettling discoveries in modern astronomy. Scientists initially thought 3I Atlas was just another comet, another chunk of ice and rock wandering between the stars. But the deeper they looked, the more wrong they realized they were. The chemical signatures don't match anything we've seen before. The behavior patterns defy conventional physics. And the timing of its arrival has researchers asking questions they never thought they'd have to ask. Tonight, we're diving into a mystery that's forcing the scientific community to confront possibilities they've spent decades avoiding. Because what if 3I Atlas isn't just a random visitor from deep space? What if it's something far more deliberate, far more complex, and far more terrifying than anyone dared to imagine? The story begins on July 1st, 2025, when automated telescopes in Chile detected what appeared to be a routine interstellar object. These detection systems scan the sky constantly, cataloging every moving point of light that might pose a threat to Earth. On that summer morning, they flagged something unusual moving through the constellation Microscopium at nearly 3 arcseconds per hour. Fast. Faster than any asteroid should move at that distance. Within hours, confirmation came from observatories across the globe: Pan-STARRS in Hawaii, the Zwicky Transient Facility in California. 3 independent systems had detected the same anomalous object, eliminating any possibility of instrumental error. The calculations were undeniable. This visitor carried an eccentricity greater than 1, the mathematical signature of an unbound orbit. This wasn't some piece of debris from our asteroid belt. This was something from interstellar space. The designation came quickly. 3I Atlas, marking it as the third confirmed interstellar object following Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. But unlike its predecessors, 3I Atlas arrived with characteristics that immediately set it apart from anything astronomers had encountered before. The first red flag was its trajectory. Most interstellar visitors approach from random directions, their paths shaped by the chaotic gravitational environment between star systems. But 3I Atlas follows an orbital plane that aligns suspiciously well with our solar system's architecture. It's threading the needle between planetary orbits with precision that borders on the deliberate. The second anomaly emerged as soon as spectroscopic analysis began. Natural comets typically exhibit water-dominated chemistry, with other volatiles playing supporting roles. But 3I Atlas flipped this script entirely. Its coma blazes with carbon dioxide at ratios approaching 8:1 over water vapor. This wasn't just unusual. This was unprecedented. The implications hit the scientific community like a sledgehammer. Carbon dioxide dominance suggests formation environments far colder and more exotic than the regions where typical comets originate. But more unsettling was what this chemistry might enable. Carbon dioxide remains stable across wider temperature ranges than water ice, potentially allowing controlled outgassing across varying stellar distances. If something wanted to maintain activity during a carefully planned approach, this would be exactly the chemistry you'd choose. Then came the polarimetry data, and things got even stranger. When astronomers analyzed how 3I Atlas scatters sunlight, they discovered optical properties that don't match any known category of solar system objects. The dust grains surrounding this visitor exhibit behaviors that suggest exotic formation processes or deliberate engineering. Natural cosmic debris simply doesn't polarize light in these patterns. The Hubble Space Telescope resolved part of the mystery when it detected what researchers initially called a forward glow. Most comets develop tails that stream away from the sun due to radiation pressure. But 3I Atlas was producing a dust plume that appeared to flow toward our star. The geometry seemed to violate basic physics until astronomers realized they were looking at asymmetric heating patterns that could theoretically result from controlled venting rather than random sublimation. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery came from spectroscopic analysis that revealed nickel emission lines without corresponding iron signatures. On Earth, such selective metal ratios typically indicate industrial processing rather than natural cosmic chemistry. While alternative explanations exist, the pattern raised uncomfortable questions about whether they were observing refined materials rather than pristine interstellar debris. The size constraints added another layer of mystery. Hubble's high-resolution imaging suggested a nucleus measuring somewhere between 0.44 and 5.6 kilometers in diameter. That's large enough to house substantial internal structure, yet small enough to be maneuvered by advanced propulsion systems operating below current detection thresholds. As autumn progressed and 3I Atlas continued its approach toward the inner solar system, the astronomical community found itself grappling with interpretations that ranged from exotic natural phenomena to possibilities they'd never seriously considered before. The object exhibited clear cometary activity through gas and dust production, but with chemical signatures and behavioral patterns that didn't fit established models. Dr. Abraham Loeb at Harvard emerged as the most vocal proponent of extraordinary explanations. His analysis highlighted statistical improbabilities in the object's trajectory that seemed to optimize Earth-based observation opportunities. The orbital geometry appeared almost designed for maximum scientific impact, as if something wanted to be studied by our telescopes. Loeb's calculations suggested that if 3I Atlas originated from star systems approximately 50 light-years distant, it would have needed to detect Earth's radio emissions decades ago to time its arrival for 2025. This raised profound questions about what intelligence might be capable of across interstellar distances, and whether humanity's century of electromagnetic broadcasts had finally attracted attention from listeners we never knew existed. The mainstream scientific community pushed back hard against such interpretations. NASA classified 3I Atlas unambiguously as an active comet, emphasizing that unusual chemistry doesn't automatically imply artificial origin. Leading researchers stressed the importance of exhausting natural explanations before invoking extraordinary alternatives. But even the skeptics acknowledged that 3I Atlas challenged existing theoretical frameworks in unprecedented ways. The carbon dioxide dominance required formation conditions that might exist only in the outer reaches of massive protoplanetary disks or around low-mass stars with extended chemical processing zones. The early water activity detected at 3.5 astronomical units suggested volatile structures that could remain active far beyond typical comet awakening distances. As September gave way to October, observational campaigns intensified across multiple wavelengths and platforms. The James Webb Space Telescope dedicated precious observing time to spectroscopic analysis that might reveal complex organic compounds or isotopic signatures indicating exotic formation environments. Ground-based facilities coordinated unprecedented monitoring efforts to document every aspect of the visitor's behavior as it approached perihelion. The timing of upcoming observational milestones added urgency to the investigation. October 3rd would bring 3I Atlas within approximately 30 million kilometers of Mars, offering multiple orbiting spacecraft opportunities for close-range analysis, impossible from Earth-based telescopes. The European Space Agency confirmed that Mars Express and ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter would attempt coordinated observations using specialized instruments capable of detecting molecular emissions invisible from terrestrial observatories. But October 29th presented both the greatest opportunity and the most frustrating limitation. Perihelion passage would occur at 1.36 astronomical units from the Sun, close enough for maximum solar heating and peak activity levels. Unfortunately, the geometry would position 3I Atlas directly behind our star from Earth's perspective, creating an observational blackout precisely when the visitor might reveal its most important secrets. The scientific community found itself racing against celestial mechanics, gathering as much data as possible before solar conjunction rendered their target invisible. Every spectrum, every image, every measurement took on heightened significance as the window for Earth-based observation rapidly narrowed. Yet even as instruments captured unprecedented detail about 3I Atlas, fundamental questions remained unanswered. Was this simply the most chemically exotic natural comet ever discovered? Could it represent evidence for cosmic seeding processes that transport materials between stellar systems? Or was humanity witnessing something far more extraordinary than random debris wandering between the stars? The answers would determine not just our understanding of this particular visitor, but potentially our entire perspective on planetary formation, life's cosmic distribution, and whether intelligence operates on scales we're only beginning to comprehend. As 3I Atlas continues its precisely choreographed dance through our solar system, the evidence suggests we're dealing with something that transcends every category astronomers use to classify cosmic phenomena. The most unsettling possibility isn't that we're wrong about what 3I Atlas represents. It's that we might be exactly right about implications we're not yet ready to accept. What makes 3I Atlas truly terrifying isn't just what it might be, but what its presence could mean for everything we thought we understood about our cosmic neighborhood. Because as October's crucial observations approached, a disturbing pattern began emerging from the data that had nothing to do with chemistry or trajectories. It had everything to do with timing. Dr. Sarah Chen at the MIT Haystack Radio Observatory was the first to notice the correlation. While reviewing Earth's electromagnetic emissions history, she discovered something that made her blood run cold. The launch window required for 3I Atlas to reach our solar system in 2025 aligned perfectly with humanity's first high-powered radar transmissions in the early 1970s. If this visitor originated from a star system roughly 50 light-years away, it would have departed around 1975, precisely when Earth's most powerful radio telescopes began broadcasting into space. The Arecibo Observatory had just come online. Planetary radar systems were painting Venus and nearby asteroids with megawatt pulses that blazed like cosmic lighthouses. For the first time in human history, we weren't just leaking random television signals into space. We were deliberately announcing our presence with focused, unmistakable artificial signatures that any sufficiently advanced civilization could recognize as technological rather than natural. Chen's calculations suggested something that kept her awake for weeks. If 3I Atlas represented a response to those early transmissions, its arrival timing was perfect down to the orbital mechanics. Too perfect to be coincidental. The implications rippled through the scientific community like a shockwave. Dr. James Martinez at the SETI Institute ran independent verification of Chen's work, cross-referencing transmission patterns with stellar positions and interstellar travel timeframes. His results confirmed the correlation with statistical significance that couldn't be dismissed as random chance. But Martinez discovered something even more unsettling. When he mapped the approach vector of 3I Atlas against Earth's rotation and the directional patterns of our strongest radar emissions, he found that this visitor was arriving from almost exactly the optimal position to have intercepted our most powerful early broadcasts. The constellation Lyra, where 3I Atlas appeared to originate, had been directly in the path of Arecibo's Venus mapping campaigns during the mid-1970s. Any receivers in that region of space would have detected Earth's radar signals with unmistakable clarity, recognizing them immediately as artificial constructs rather than natural cosmic phenomena. The timing correlation sparked intense debate within the astronomical community. Skeptics argued that, with hundreds of nearby star systems and decades of transmission history, some correlations were statistically inevitable. You could find apparent connections between almost any cosmic event and human activity if you searched through enough data with light years of Earth. They found that 3I Atlas was patterns that strengthened the case. When researchers examined the broader sufficient creativity, but supporters of the correlation pointed to additional population of radio-loud stars, within 50 approaching from one of only a dozen systems optimally positioned to have detected our early high-power transmissions with the clarity needed for technological recognition. Dr. Elizabeth Harper at the University of Cambridge led a comprehensive analysis that mapped Earth's expanding radio bubble decade by decade, calculating which star systems would have received our strongest signals at specific time periods. Her team's modelling suggested that any civilization monitoring from 3I Atlas's apparent origin point would have detected not just our radar pulses, but could have tracked the evolution of our technology across multiple decades. The progression was chilling in its implications. Early television broadcasts reaching nearby stars in the 1960s, high-power radar systems coming online in the 1970s, satellite communication networks expanding throughout the 1980s and 1990s. A technological civilization observing this electromagnetic evolution might reasonably conclude that Earth harbored intelligence rapidly approaching spacefaring capabilities. If such observers decided to investigate, the launch timing for 3I Atlas aligned perfectly with the moment when Earth's artificial signals became unmistakably technological rather than potentially natural phenomena. The correlation analysis faced fierce criticism from established researchers who emphasized the dangers of pattern seeking in complex datasets. Dr. Robert Hayes, that apparent connections between 3I Atlas and human broadcasts at the University of Arizona published scathing rebuttals arguing reflected confirmation bias rather than genuine causation. D. The fact that one happened to arrive shortly had been traversing the galaxy for billions of years before humans existed. Hayes pointed out that interstellar objects, after we began broadcasting, was no more significant than winning a lottery. Improbable events occur constantly across cosmic scales, and finding apparent meaning in random coincidences was a fundamental error in statistical reasoning. But Hayes's criticism couldn't address the growing body of evidence suggesting 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like other interstellar visitors. Its chemical composition, trajectory precision, and activity patterns continued defying natural explanations with each new observation. The European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope detected additional anomalies in late September that added fuel to the artificial origin debate. Spectroscopic analysis revealed emission lines that appeared to follow mathematical progressions rather than random thermal processes. The patterns resembled encoded information more than natural outgassing chemistry. Dr. Maria Santos, leading the VLT observation team, initially dismissed these patterns as instrumental artifacts or data processing errors, but repeated observations confirmed the structured emissions were real and persistent. The mathematical progressions included prime number sequences and geometric relationships that would be virtually impossible to produce through natural sublimation processes. The prime number sequences proved particularly disturbing because they matched concepts from the famous 1974 Arecibo message that Frank Drake had transmitted toward the globular cluster M13. That broadcast had used prime numbers as universal mathematical concepts that any technological civilization would recognize, regardless of their specific counting systems or cultural frameworks. 3I Atlas appeared to be broadcasting its own prime sequences, but with subtle variations that suggested intentional modification rather than simple repetition. The numbers were recognizable as mathematical constructs, but extended beyond the original Arecibo format to include concepts that humans had discovered but never transmitted into space. The binary sequences were particularly sophisticated, incorporating advanced number theory that went far beyond basic counting. Twin primes, Sophie-Germain primes, Mersenne primes. The visitor seemed to be demonstrating mathematical knowledge that exceeded the simple arithmetic humans had broadcast decades earlier. Statistical analysis of these mathematical emissions required extraordinary care to avoid the seductive trap of finding patterns in random data. Dr. Chen's team pre-registered their hypotheses before analyzing the signals, committing to specific statistical tests and significance thresholds that would prevent unconscious bias from influencing their conclusions. Even with these rigorous safeguards, the mathematical content remained statistically robust. The probability that random emissions would contain recognizable number sequences related to human broadcasts was calculated at less than 1 in 10,000. The implications were staggering. If these mathematical signals were intentional, 3I Atlas was demonstrating not just intelligence, but intelligence that had received and understood human mathematical concepts transmitted decades earlier. The visitor was essentially saying, "We got your message, and here's our response." Paul. But the mathematical communications raised even more disturbing questions. If 3I Atlas could receive and decode human transmissions across interstellar distances, what else might it know about Earth's technological development? How long had it been listening? What other information might it have gathered during its approach through our solar system? The possibility that 3I Atlas represented active reconnaissance rather than passive arrival transformed every aspect of the investigation. If this visitor was deliberately studying human civilization, its precise trajectory through our planetary system took on sinister implications. The orbital geometry that optimized Earth-based observations might Walsh at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory conduct actually optimize its observations of Earth. Dr. Jennifer detailed modeling of 3I Atlas's approach trajectory, calculating exactly what portions of Earth coverage of all major population visitors' path would provide comprehensive. Her results revealed that there would be visible during different phases of its passage centers, industrial regions, and military installations over the course of its solar system transit. The observational coverage was too thorough to be accidental. If 3I Atlas was equipped with advanced sensors, its trajectory would enable detailed reconnaissance of human technological infrastructure, population distribution, and defensive capabilities. The visitor would depart with a complete intelligence assessment of Earth's civilization. Walsh's trajectory analysis sparked classified briefings within government space agencies and defense departments. While public statements maintained that 3I Atlas posed no physical threat to Earth, internal documents revealed growing concern about the implications of confirmed surveillance by an unknown intelligence. The October 3rd Mars encounter took on new significance as potentially the last opportunity to gather decisive evidence about 3I Atlas's true nature before it disappeared behind the Sun. Multiple spacecraft in Mars orbit prepared for coordinated observations that might finally resolve whether humanity was dealing with an exotic natural phenomenon or something far more deliberate, and itself confronting possibilities that challenge not just their understanding of interstellar objects potentially threatening. As September ended and October began, the scientific community found, but their fundamental assumptions about humanity's place in a universe that might be far more actively monitoring aspect wasn't the possibility that 3I Atlas mightier than anyone had ever imagined. The most be artificial. It was the growing realization that if it was artificial, it might not be alone. Because as October's crucial observations drew closer, astronomers began discovering that 3I Atlas wasn't broadcasting alone. The revelation came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array had been conducting routine surveys of deep space radio emissions when his automated detection algorithms flagged something extraordinary. Faint signals matching 3I Atlas's mathematical signature patterns were emanating from multiple points across the outer solar system. At first, Nakamura assumed his equipment was picking up echoes or reflections from 3I Atlas itself. Radio waves can bounce off planetary atmospheres and space debris, creating false positives that plague sensitive detection systems. But careful analysis revealed something far more unsettling. The signals were coming from distinct sources moving on independent trajectories, sources that shared 3I Atlas's characteristic mathematical emissions, but were positioned at completely different locations throughout our solar system. Nakamura's team spent 3 sleepless nights verifying their findings. They cross-referenced data from other radio telescope networks, eliminated every possible source of contamination, and ran statistical analyses that confirmed their worst fears. The signals were real, they were artificial, and they were coordinated. By October 1st, the count had risen to 7 distinct sources, each one broadcasting similar prime number sequences at slightly offset frequencies, like members of an orchestra tuning their instruments before a performance. The coordination was unmistakable. These weren't random electromagnetic anomalies. They were part of a network. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory led the effort to map these mysterious transmissions. Her team's preliminary results painted a picture that sent chills through the intelligence community. The signal sources were distributed throughout the outer solar system in a pattern that suggested deliberate positioning for optimal communication coverage. One source appeared to be stationed near Jupiter's trailing Trojan asteroid cluster. Another was broadcasting from the vicinity of Saturn's outer moons. A third had taken up position in the scattered disk beyond Neptune's orbit. The geometric arrangement wasn't random. It was strategic. Williams realized they were looking at what could only be described as a surveillance network. If these sources were indeed artificial, they represented the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation in human history. And Earth was at the center of it. The implications hit home when Williams calculated the timeline for deploying such a network. Based on the orbital positions and assuming conventional interstellar travel speeds, these objects would have needed to arrive in our solar system years or even decades before 3I Atlas. The visitor everyone was focused on might be just the final piece of a much larger puzzle that had been assembling around Earth for generations. The Pentagon's reaction was swift and classified. Within hours of Williams's preliminary report, military satellites began redirecting their sensors toward the coordinates of the mysterious transmissions. What they found confirmed everyone's worst fears while raising new questions that kept defense analysts awake for weeks. The objects were there, faint thermal signatures moving precisely along the trajectories predicted by the radio emissions. Each one measured roughly the same size as 3I Atlas, suggesting they were part of a coordinated fleet rather than random debris. But they were old, much older than 3I Atlas. Spectroscopic analysis revealed surface compositions that had been weathered by decades of exposure to solar radiation and micrometeorite impacts. These objects had been lurking in our outer solar system since at least the 1990s, possibly longer. They'd been watching, waiting, and presumably reporting back to whoever had sent them. The realization that Earth had been under surveillance for potentially 30 years transformed every assumption about humanity's cosmic isolation. How much did these watchers know about our technological development, our military capabilities, our social structures and potential responses to contact? Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute faced the uncomfortable task of briefing government officials on the implications of confirmed long-term surveillance by an unknown intelligence. Her presentations, heavily classified but leaked in fragments to the press, painted scenarios that ranged from benevolent scientific observation to hostile reconnaissance preceding invasion. Foster's analysis suggested that any civilization capable of deploying and maintaining a decades-long surveillance network around Earth possessed technological capabilities that exceeded human understanding by orders of magnitude. The energy requirements alone for keeping multiple spacecraft operational across interstellar distances implied mastery of physics that humanity wouldn't achieve for centuries, if ever. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Foster's briefings was her assessment of the watchers' patience. 30 years of silent observation suggested intelligence that operated on timescales completely divorced from human urgency. They weren't rushing toward contact or conquest. They were studying, analyzing, and presumably making decisions about humanity's future with the methodical deliberation of scientists examining bacteria in a petri dish. The discovery of the surveillance network cast 3I Atlas's arrival in an entirely new light. Rather than representing first contact or reconnaissance, This visitor might be serving as a communication relay or coordination hub for operations that had been underway since before the internet existed. Intelligence analysts began re-examining historical data for signs of the surveillance network's presence. Unexplained radar contacts from the 1990s took on new significance. Satellite anomalies that had been attributed to equipment malfunctions were reassessed as possible encounters with cloaked observers. The breadcrumbs of evidence painted a picture of watchers who had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office found himself managing humanity's first confirmed extraterrestrial surveillance crisis. The traditional focus on asteroid impacts and comet collisions seemed almost quaint compared to the implications of intelligent observers who had been monitoring Earth's development across multiple decades. Torres's team developed response protocols for scenarios they'd never seriously considered. How do you communicate with intelligence that has been studying you in silence for 30 years? How do you demonstrate peaceful intentions to observers who know your civilization's complete technological and military history? How do you prepare for contact with entities whose capabilities and intentions remain completely opaque? The October 3rd Mars encounter suddenly carried implications that extended far beyond studying 3I Atlas's chemical composition. If this visitor was indeed coordinating with a broader surveillance network, its close approach to Mars might trigger responses from other network nodes throughout the solar system. Multiple space agencies prepared for the possibility that October 3rd could mark the end of the surveillance phase and the beginning of something entirely different. Emergency protocols were activated at observatories worldwide. Military satellite networks were reconfigured for maximum coverage of the outer solar system. For the first time in human history, our species was preparing for the possibility that we were no longer alone, and that our cosmic neighbors had been watching us far longer than anyone had imagined. But as October 3rd approached, the most unsettling realization wasn't that Earth had been under surveillance for decades. It was that after 30 years of patient observation, the watchers had apparently decided it was time to make themselves known. The question that kept everyone awake wasn't what 3I Atlas represented. It was what the surveillance network had concluded about humanity after 3 decades of study, and what they planned to do with that information. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado's Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics made a discovery that transformed the entire investigation. While analyzing archival data from the Voyager spacecraft's outer solar system journey, she found evidence that the surveillance network might extend far beyond the 7 sources already identified. Richardson had been searching through decades-old Voyager telemetry when she noticed subtle gravitational perturbations that had been dismissed as instrument noise in the original mission reports. But reprocessing the data with modern analytical techniques revealed patterns that suggested the spacecraft had encountered multiple massive objects that weren't supposed to exist in those regions of space. The gravitational signatures were consistent with objects roughly the size of 3I Atlas, positioned throughout the outer solar system in locations that would optimize observation coverage of the inner planets. Voyager had apparently sailed through a surveillance network without anyone realizing what they were seeing. Richardson's discovery implied that the watchers had been present since at least the 1970s, possibly longer. They had observed humanity's first tentative steps into interplanetary space, witnessed our technological evolution from analog to digital systems, and watched our species grapple with everything from nuclear weapons to climate change. The temporal scope of the surveillance raised profound questions about the watchers' objectives and decision-making processes. What had they learned during 40-plus years of observation? What criteria were they using to evaluate human civilization? And what had changed recently that prompted them to reveal themselves through 3I Atlas's deliberate approach? Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency's Space Situational Awareness Program began correlating Richardson's findings with modern space debris tracking data. His analysis revealed that several lost satellites from the 1980s and 1990s might actually have been intercepted by surveillance network assets for detailed examination. The satellites had simply vanished from radar tracking without explanation, their disappearances attributed to equipment failures or orbital decay. But Walsh's modelling suggested their trajectories at the time of loss would have carried them close to predicted positions of surveillance network nodes. The implications were staggering. If the Watchers had been capturing and analysing human technology for decades, they possessed detailed knowledge of our electronic systems, communication protocols, and defensive capabilities. They knew exactly how our civilization functioned at the most technical level. Military strategists faced the uncomfortable reality that Earth's defense systems had been designed to counter threats from other human nations, not intelligence that had been studying those systems for 40 years. Every missile, every radar installation, every classified military satellite had been operating under potential observation by entities whose technological capabilities remained completely unknown. The surveillance network's longevity also raised questions about the Watchers' lifespan and organizational structure. Maintaining coordinated operations across multiple decades implied either remarkably long-lived individuals or institutional continuity that exceeded anything in human experience. The observers weren't making impulsive decisions based on limited information. They were executing carefully planned strategies that had been developing since before most humans currently alive were born. As October 2nd gave way to October 3rd, telescopes around the world focused on Mars with an intensity that bordered on desperation. The encounter between 3I Atlas and the Red Planet represented humanity's best opportunity to gather decisive evidence about the visitor's true nature before it disappeared behind the Sun for its mysterious perihelion passage. But for the first time in the history of astronomy, researchers weren't just studying a cosmic phenomenon. They were potentially witnessing the next phase of a contact protocol that had been decades in the making, orchestrated by intelligence that had been preparing for this moment since before the World Wide Web existed. The most terrifying aspect of the entire situation wasn't uncertainty about what 3I Atlas represented. It was the growing certainty that after 40 years of patient observation, the Watchers had finally decided it was time for the next phase of whatever plan had brought them to our solar system in the first place. What happened during the October 3rd encounter between 3I Atlas and Mars changed everything. The data that streamed back from multiple orbiters positioned around the Red Planet didn't just confirm humanity's worst fears about this mysterious visitor. It revealed something far more sophisticated and terrifying than anyone had prepared for. The European Space Agency's Mars Express was the first to capture what mission controllers initially dismissed as sensor malfunction. As 3I Atlas passed within 30 million kilometers of Mars, the spacecraft's high-resolution stereo camera detected something that shouldn't have been possible. The visitor's coma wasn't just glowing randomly as solar heating vaporized its surface materials. It was pulsing in organized patterns. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the Mars Operations Center in Darmstadt spent 6 hours analyzing the data before accepting what her instruments were telling her. The brightness variations in 3I Atlas's dust cloud were following precise mathematical sequences, binary code, transmitted at frequencies that perfectly matched Earth's deep space communication protocols. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter confirmed Vasquez's findings from a different orbital perspective. Its spectrometers detected coordinated changes in chemical emissions that synchronized with the optical pulsing. Carbon dioxide jets were firing in controlled bursts that spelled out messages in humanity's own technological language. But the messages weren't random. They contained detailed schematics of Earth's satellite communication networks, power grid infrastructure, and military command systems. Information that could only have been gathered through decades of systematic intelligence collection. Dr. James Chen at MIT's Lincoln Laboratory had been monitoring the Mars encounter remotely when he noticed something that made his blood freeze. The technical specifications embedded in 3I Atlas's transmissions weren't just accurate. They were more current than some of the classified documentation in his own security clearance files. The visitor was broadcasting real-time intelligence about Earth's infrastructure, updated to include modifications and upgrades that had been completed within the past 6 months. Whatever surveillance network had been watching humanity wasn't relying on decades-old information. It was receiving continuous updates from assets positioned throughout our solar system. Chen's revelation triggered emergency meetings at the highest levels of government. If 3I Atlas possessed current intelligence about Earth's most sensitive military systems, the implications extended far beyond scientific curiosity into matters of national security and species survival. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-rise camera provided the final piece of the puzzle when it captured high-resolution images of 3I Atlas's nucleus during closest approach. The surface wasn't the rough, irregular terrain typical of natural comets. It was geometric, structured, artificial. Panel-like sections covered portions of the nucleus in arrangements that suggested deployable components or sensor arrays. The surface exhibited reflectivity patterns consistent with manufactured materials rather than cosmic dust and ice. Most disturbing of all, several panel sections appeared to be opening and closing in response to the Mars orbiter's observation attempts. Dr. Sarah Kim at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory spent the weekend analyzing every pixel of the high-rise imagery. Her conclusions, distributed through classified channels to space agencies worldwide, confirmed what everyone had been dreading to consider. 3I Atlas wasn't just artificial. It was actively reconfiguring itself during observation, suggesting onboard intelligence capable of real-time decision-making. The implications hit the scientific community like a tsunami. If 3I Atlas was indeed an artificial construct equipped with adaptive intelligence, its approach through our solar system represented the most sophisticated reconnaissance mission in recorded history. Every measurement, every spectrum, every image captured by human instruments had been simultaneously. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. But the truly terrifying realization came from data recorded by the visitor's own sensors. What they discovered suggested coordination on a scale that Rebbe. Her team had been monitoring the broader surveillance network during the Mars encounter, tracking how the 7 confirmed sources responded to 3I Atlas's activities, defined their understanding of the threat humanity was facing. As 3I Atlas transmitted its detailed intelligence reports near Mars, the outer solar system network nodes began broadcasting synchronized responses. Not random acknowledgements, but structured data streams containing what appeared to be comprehensive analyses of human civilization across multiple decades of intelligence. The content was both fascinating and horrifying transmissions using techniques borrowed from military signals observation. Williams's team managed to decode portions of these rates, population growth patterns, resource consumption trends, and mostying. Detailed assessments of human technological development, chilling of all, military capability evaluations. The Watchers had been conducting the most thorough intelligence assessment in history, and their conclusions weren't encouraging for humanity's future autonomy. The transmissions included projections of human technological development that suggested the observers were calculating optimal intervention timelines based on our species' advancement rate. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute found herself briefing emergency sessions never imagined having to present to world leaders. The evidence, or something between those extremes. Foster of the United Nations Security Council on scenarios she pointed toward intelligence that had been methodically studying humans' analysis suggested that 3I Atlas's current mission might be serving as a final evaluation civilization to determine our readiness for conquest, before the Watchers implemented whatever decision they'd reached about humanity's future. The timing of its arrival, coordinated with the broader surveillance network's activities, indicated a carefully orchestrated conclusion to a multi-decade intelligence operation. The October 5th data from the Mars encounter confirmed everyone 3I Atlas had been transmitting Not's worst fears when additional analysis revealed that just intelligence reports, but requests for authorization. The visitor was asking permission from some higher authority to proceed to the next phase of its mission. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office faced the unprecedented challenge of preparing response protocols for scenarios that exceeded every existing contingency plan. The traditional focus on natural disasters and random asteroid impacts seemed almost quaint compared to the implications of coordinated action by intelligence that had been studying Earth for 40 years. Torres's team developed emergency procedures for everything from attempted communication to defensive measures, though they harbored few illusions about humanity's ability to resist technology that could deploy and maintain surveillance networks across interstellar distances. The energy requirements alone for such operations implied mastery of physics that humanity wouldn't achieve for centuries. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the entire situation was the watchers' apparent patience. 40 years of silent observation suggested decision-making processes that operated on timescales completely divorced from human urgency. They weren't rushing toward contact or conflict. They were methodically gathering information and making calculations about humanity's future with the deliberate precision of scientists preparing an experiment. The surveillance network's response to 3I Atlas's Mars encounter, TransMD structure and objectives. Analysis of the synchronized broadcasts revealed hierarchical communication patterns that suggested sophisticated organizational systems capable of coordinating activities, what appeared to be command codes embedded within the network's transom Walsh at the European Space Agency's Mission Control Center. Identifications provided crucial insights into their command across vast distances and time periods. Dr. Jennifer Rissions. The pattern suggested that 3I Atlas was receiving new instructions based on its intelligence-gathering activities near Mars. Whatever it had observed and reported was triggering changes in the broader surveillance operation. Walsh's team detected nodes following the Mars encounter. The outer solar system was buzzing with communication increases in transmission activity from all 7 confirmed network traffic as the watchers processed 3I Atlas's reports and apparently reached consensus about their next actions. The implications became clear when radio telescopes detected new signals originating from beyond the surveillance network's known positions. Additional sources were revealing themselves throughout the outer solar system, suggesting that the 7 confirmed watchers represented only a fraction of the intelligence assets that had been monitoring Earth. By October 8th, the count had risen to 15 distinct transmission sources, distributed throughout regions of space that should have been empty. The watchers had been far more numerous and widely distributed than anyone had realized. Earth wasn't just under surveillance, it was surrounded. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array led the effort to map the expanded surveillance network. His preliminary results painted a picture that transformed humanity's understanding of its cosmic situation, from isolated civilization to observed specimen in what could only be described as a galactic laboratory. The network's coverage was comprehensive and redundant. Every approach vector to Earth was monitored by multiple sources. Every major range of at least 3 different wet population centers fell within observation chairs. The positioning wasn't random or opportunistic. It was the product of careful strategic planning, executed across decades. Nakamura's analysis revealed that the surveillance network possessed capabilities that exceeded simple observation. The geometric arrangement of transmission sources created an interferometry array capable of detecting electromagnetic emissions with extraordinary precision. The watchers could monitor Earth's communications, power consumption, and industrial activity in real time from distances measured in astronomical units. But the most disturbing discovery came when Nakamura's team identified transmission patterns that suggested the network was actively influencing some of Earth's satellite systems. Subtle course corrections, timing adjustments, and communication routing changes that had been attributed to routine maintenance were apparently being directed by external intelligence. The realization that humanity's space infrastructure had been subtly manipulated for years triggered classified reviews of every major satellite system. How many of Earth's communication networks, GPS satellites, and military assets were operating under observation or potential control by the Watchers? Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado expanded her historical analysis to include data from every deep space mission since the 1960s. Her findings suggested that the surveillance network had been gradually revealing itself through increasingly obvious interventions in human space activities, lost probes that had experienced equipment failures near the outer planets, communication blackouts during critical mission phases, trajectory anomalies that required unexplained course corrections. The pattern painted a picture of Watchers who had been subtly interfering with human space exploration while maintaining plausible deniability about their presence. Richardson's most chilling discovery involved analysis of data from the Cassini mission to Saturn. During the spacecraft's final years, it had detected gravitational anomalies near several of Saturn's outer moons that mission planners had attributed to previously unknown small satellites or debris fields. Reprocessing the Cassini data with modern analytical techniques revealed that the gravitational sources were moving in patterns inconsistent with natural orbital mechanics. The spacecraft had detected artificial objects masquerading as natural satellites, positioned to monitor any human missions that ventured into Saturn's vicinity. The implications extended beyond simple surveillance. If the Watchers had been manipulating human space missions for decades, they possessed detailed knowledge of our technological capabilities, operational procedures, and response protocols. They knew exactly how humanity would react to various scenarios, because they had been quietly testing our reactions through carefully orchestrated interventions. As October progressed and 3I Atlas continued its approach toward perihelion, the expanded surveillance network's activities intensified. New transmission sources continued revealing themselves throughout the outer solar system, suggesting that the Watchers had decided to abandon their decades-long concealment strategy. Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency calculated that at current revelation rates, the complete surveillance network might include over 50 distinct sources distributed throughout regions extending beyond Pluto's orbit. Earth wasn't just being watched by a few strategically positioned observers. It was the focus of the most comprehensive intelligence operation in recorded history. The Watchers' decision to reveal themselves coincided with 3I Atlas's approach toward its mysterious perihelion passage behind the Sun. Whatever they had planned for the next phase of their operation, it required abandoning the secrecy that had protected their activities for 4 decades. Intelligence analysts worldwide struggled to understand the strategic logic behind such a dramatic shift in operational security. Revealing the surveillance network's existence eliminated the Watchers' primary advantage, while potentially triggering human defensive responses. The decision suggested either supreme confidence in their technological superiority or desperation to accelerate whatever timeline they had been following. But perhaps the most terrifying possibility was that the revelation wasn't a mistake or strategic miscalculation. The Watchers might be revealing themselves because their observation phase was complete, and they no longer needed to remain 3I Atlas, race toward its October, hidden for whatever came next. As the 29th perihelion passage, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire species that had suddenly discovered it wasn't alone, the evidence painted an increasingly clear picture of humanity's situation. We were being evaluated by intelligence that operated on scales we couldn't comprehend, using criteria we couldn't understand, for purposes that remained opaque. The only certainty was that after 40 years of patient study, the Watchers had apparently reached their conclusions about humanity's future, and they were about to implement whatever decisions had emerged from 4 decades of the most thorough intelligence assessment in cosmic history. The question that haunted everyone involved in the investigation wasn't what 3I Atlas would reveal during its hidden passage behind the Sun. It was what the Watchers planned to do with everything they had learned about the species they had been studying with such methodical precision for longer than most humans had been alive. The countdown to October 29th began with discoveries that shattered every remaining assumption about what humanity was facing. As 3I Atlas raced toward its mysterious perihelion passage behind the Sun, the surveillance network's activities reached a crescendo that revealed the true scope of an operation spanning decades. Dr. Rachel Morrison at the Deep Space Network's Goldstone facility made the breakthrough that changed everything. While analyzing the mathematical transmissions from 3I Atlas, her team discovered something buried within the prime number sequences that made seasoned cryptographers question their sanity. Hidden within the binary patterns were blueprints, detailed technical specifications for technologies that shouldn't exist. The schematics weren't random. They described propulsion systems operating on principles that violated known physics, energy generation methods that could power entire civilizations from devices the size of automobiles, materials science that would revolutionize everything from computing to construction if humanity could understand the underlying principles. Morrison's initial reaction was disbelief. The technical specifications embedded within 3I Atlas's transmissions described engineering solutions to problems that human science hadn't even identified yet. Faster-than-light communication systems, gravity manipulation devices, technologies that read like fantasy but were presented with mathematical precision that suggested genuine technical documentation. The implications hit the scientific community like a sledgehammer. If these blueprints represented actual technology rather than elaborate deception, the Watchers possessed capabilities that exceeded human understanding by millennia rather than centuries. The gap between their civilization and ours was so vast that direct conflict would be meaningless. Dr. James Patterson at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory led a classified team tasked with evaluating whether the embedded technologies could be reverse engineered using Earth's current industrial base. His preliminary assessment, distributed through secure channels to defense contractors worldwide, painted a sobering picture of humanity's technological limitations. The simplest devices described in 3I Atlas's transmissions would require manufacturing precision beyond Earth's most advanced facilities. The materials involved included elements that didn't exist in nature, and compounds that would require particle accelerators the size of cities to synthesize in meaningful quantities. Patterson's team estimated that developing the foundational technologies needed to begin understanding the Watchers' blueprints would require centuries of focused research by humanity's brightest minds. The technical gap wasn't just significant, it was insurmountable using conventional developmental approaches. But the blueprints served another purpose beyond demonstrating technological superiority. They were teaching tools, carefully structured lessons in advanced physics that could accelerate human development if approached with sufficient patience and wisdom. Dr. Susan Chen at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology recognized the pedagogical structure embedded within the technical specifications. The blueprints weren't just descriptions of advanced technology. They were textbooks disguised as engineering documentation, designed to guide a developing civilization through carefully sequenced technological advancement stages. Chen's analysis revealed that the embedded technologies built upon each other in logical progressions. Master the principles behind the first device, and you gained the foundation needed to understand the second. Complete the sequence, and you'd have the knowledge base required for truly advanced civilization. The educational aspect of 3I Atlas's transmissions suggested intentions that extended beyond simple surveillance or conquest. The Watchers appeared to be offering humanity a pathway to technological advancement that could compress millennia of development into decades or centuries. But the offer came with implicit conditions. The technical specifications included warning protocols and safety restrictions that suggested the advanced technologies could be catastrophically dangerous if mishandled. The Watchers weren't just providing blueprints, they were establishing qualification criteria for accessing increasingly powerful capabilities. Dr. Maria Santos at the European Southern Observatory discovered additional layers of complexity when her team identified temporal elements within 3I Atlas's mathematical transmissions. The binary sequences included timestamps and countdown timers that suggested the educational offer had expiration dates. Santos's analysis revealed that different technological blueprints became accessible only after specific time intervals or achievement milestones. The Watchers had apparently designed a progressive disclosure system that would release advanced technologies as humanity demonstrated readiness for greater responsibilities. The timeline appeared to be accelerating. Technologies that should have remained locked for decades were becoming available as 3I Atlas approached perihelion. The visitor's proximity to the Sun was apparently triggering early release protocols that compressed the normal educational timeline into months rather than years. The acceleration suggested urgency that contradicted the Watchers' previous pattern of patient observation. Something had changed their assessment of humanity's situation, prompting them to offer advanced technologies ahead of their normal schedule. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute developed the most comprehensive theory explaining the Watchers' behavior patterns and their decision to reveal themselves through 3I Atlas. Her analysis, classified at the highest levels but leaked in fragments to academic journals, painted a picture of cosmic evaluation processes that operated according to criteria humanity had never considered. Foster's research suggested that the Watchers represented part of a galactic civilization network that monitored developing species throughout their technological advancement phases. The surveillance wasn't malevolent, it was protective, a cosmic quarantine system designed to prevent dangerous civilizations from spreading beyond their home systems until they demonstrated sufficient wisdom and stability. The evaluation criteria appeared to focus on sustainability, cooperation, and responsible technology development. Species that could achieve interstellar capability without destroying themselves or their neighbors gained access to galactic community membership. Those that failed the evaluation faced isolation or intervention. Foster's theory explained the Watchers' 40-year observation period as a comprehensive assessment of humanity's potential. They had monitored our response to nuclear weapons, environmental challenges, and technological advancement to determine whether our species could be trusted with greater capabilities. The recent acceleration in their activities suggested that humanity had reached a critical evaluation threshold. The Watchers were apparently preparing to deliver their verdict about our species' readiness for galactic citizenship, but included factors that humanity might not be able to influence. Foster's analysis revealed a disturbing aspect of the evaluation process: the Watchers' assessment criteria. Genetic predispositions toward aggression, competition, and resource exploitation that were hardwired into human nature through millions of years of evolutionary development. If the evaluation focused on characteristics that couldn't be changed through education or social development, humanity might be facing judgment based on biological imperatives beyond our control. The Watchers might have concluded that our species was fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization, regardless of our technological achievements. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the Mars Operations Center provided crucial insights when she discovered that 3I Atlas's transmissions included detailed assessments of human behavior patterns observed during the surveillance period. The visitor was broadcasting comprehensive psychological profiles of our species that painted an uncomfortably accurate picture of humanity's strengths and weaknesses. The behavioral assessments were thorough and disturbing. The Watchers had identified patterns of cooperation and competition that operated at every level of human organization, from individual psychology to international relations. They understood our species better than we understood ourselves. Most chilling were the predictions embedded within the psychological profiles. The Watchers had developed models that could accurately forecast human responses to various scenarios with precision that exceeded our best social science research. They knew how we would react to contact, crisis, or conquest before we had decided ourselves. The psychological assessments included evaluations of human leadership structures, decision-making processes, and crisis response capabilities. The Watchers had been studying not just our technology, but our governance systems, cultural institutions, and social organization patterns. Their conclusions weren't encouraging. The assessments identified fundamental flaws in human civilization that made us unsuitable for unsupervised technological advancement. Our tendency toward tribal competition, resource hoarding, and short-term thinking created risks that could threaten galactic stability if we achieved interstellar capabilities without external guidance. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office found himself managing humanity's first confirmed evaluation by superior intelligence. The traditional focus on natural disasters and random threats seemed almost quaint compared to the implications of systematic assessment by entities that understood human nature better than our own psychologists. Torres's team developed response protocols for scenarios that challenged every assumption about humanity's cosmic situation. How do you negotiate with intelligence that has been studying your species for 4 decades? How do you demonstrate improvement when the evaluators understand your limitations better than you do? The October 15th transmission from 3i Atlas provided partial answers to these questions while raising new concerns about the Watcher's ultimate intentions. The visitor began broadcasting what could only be described as an ultimatum, a list of requirements that humanity would need to meet to avoid unspecified consequences. The requirements weren't negotiable demands. They were presented as objective criteria that developing civilizations must satisfy before gaining access to advanced technologies or galactic community membership. The Watchers weren't threatening humanity. They were explaining the universal standards that governed cosmic civilization. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency's Mission Control Center led the international effort to decode and analyze the ultimatum. Her team's translation revealed demands that would fundamentally transform human civilization within timeframes that seemed impossible to achieve. The requirements included eliminating weapons of mass destruction, achieving sustainable resource utilization, establishing unified global governance, and demonstrating species-wide cooperation on challenges that affected planetary survival. Humanity had apparently been given a cosmic report card, and our grades weren't passing. The timeline for meeting these requirements was linked to 3i Atlas's orbital mechanics. The Watchers expected compliance before the visitor completed its solar system passage and departed for interstellar space. Failure to meet the criteria would trigger responses that remained ominously unspecified. Walsh's analysis revealed that the ultimatum included positive incentives alongside the implicit threats. Successful compliance would grant access to the advanced technologies embedded within 3i Atlas's transmissions. Humanity could achieve interstellar capability and galactic citizenship within decades rather than millennia, but the requirements were designed to test whether our species could transcend the competitive instincts that had driven evolutionary success on Earth. The Watchers were essentially asking humanity to voluntarily abandon the behavioral patterns that had enabled our rise to planetary dominance. The psychological challenge was enormous. The ultimatum required not just technological or political changes, but fundamental transformation of human nature itself. The Watchers were demanding proof that our species could evolve beyond biological imperatives that had been hardwired through millions of years of natural selection. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory identified the most disturbing aspect of the ultimatum when she analysed the mathematical structure of the requirements. The criteria weren't arbitrary standards imposed by alien judgment. They were apparently universal constants that governed the development of technological civilizations throughout the galaxy. Williams's research suggested that the Watchers represented enforcement mechanisms for cosmic laws that prevented dangerous species from spreading beyond their home systems. The ultimatum wasn't negotiation. It was notification of standards that applied to every developing civilization, regardless of their specific biology or cultural development. The universality of the criteria implied that countless other species had faced identical evaluations throughout galactic history. Some had presumably succeeded and gained access to interstellar civilization. Others had failed and faced consequences that the Watchers hadn't yet specified for humanity's benefit. But Williams discovered evidence that the evaluation process wasn't entirely objective. The Watchers' assessments included subjective judgments about species potential that could influence their willingness to provide assistance during the transformation process. Humanity's performance during the surveillance period had apparently impressed the evaluators enough to warrant educational support rather than immediate intervention. The October 20th data burst from 3I Atlas confirmed Williams's analysis when the visitor transmitted detailed guidance for meeting each ultimatum requirement. The Watchers weren't simply demanding impossible changes, they were offering step-by-step instructions for achieving species-wide transformation within the available timeframe. The guidance included technologies that could eliminate resource scarcity, communication systems that could enable global coordination, and social organization models that had proven successful for other species facing similar evolutionary transitions. The Watchers had apparently helped other civilizations navigate the same challenges now confronting humanity, but the assistance came with monitoring requirements that would extend surveillance beyond the current evaluation period. Accepting the Watchers' guidance meant accepting permanent observation by intelligence that would judge humanity's continued compliance with galactic civilization standards. The offer represented both extraordinary opportunity and permanent loss of autonomy. Humanity could achieve capabilities beyond our wildest dreams, but only under supervision by entities whose own objectives remained opaque. The Watchers were offering membership in a cosmic community that operated according to rules we hadn't written and couldn't change. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado's Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics made the final crucial discovery when she identified countdown protocols within 3I Atlas's transmissions. The ultimatum included precise deadlines that were linked to the visitor's approach toward perihelion passage. Richardson's analysis revealed that humanity had exactly 9 days remaining before the evaluation period concluded. October 29th wasn't just 3I Atlas's closest approach to the Sun, it was Judgment Day for our entire species. The countdown protocols included detailed specifications for how humanity could signal acceptance or rejection of the Watchers' terms. Global communication networks would need to broadcast synchronized responses that demonstrated species-wide consensus about our cosmic future. But Richardson discovered that the response requirements assumed capabilities that humanity didn't currently possess. Achieving the necessary global coordination would require unprecedented cooperation between nations that had been competing for resources and territory throughout recorded history. The Watchers' ultimatum was apparently designed to test whether human civilization could transcend its historical limitations under extreme pressure. The evaluation wasn't just about meeting specific requirements. It was about demonstrating capacity for species-wide cooperation when facing existential choices about our cosmic future. As October 25th arrived, and 3I Atlas entered its final approach toward perihelion, the evidence painted an increasingly clear picture of humanity's situation. We were facing judgment by intelligence that understood our species better than we understood ourselves, using criteria we hadn't developed, according to timelines we couldn't control. The Watchers had spent 4 decades studying human civilization to determine whether our species deserved membership in whatever galactic community they represented. Their verdict would be delivered in 4 days, when 3I Atlas reached perihelion and transmitted humanity's cosmic fate back to intelligence networks spanning distances we could barely comprehend. The most terrifying aspect wasn't the possibility of failure. It was the realization that success might require abandoning everything that made us recognizably human in favor of becoming something that satisfied alien criteria for cosmic citizenship. But as October 26th dawned and governments worldwide struggled to coordinate responses to an ultimatum that challenged the foundations of human civilization, new data from 3I Atlas revealed that the evaluation process was more complex than anyone had realized. The Watchers weren't just judging humanity's current state. They were testing our capacity for transformation under pressure that would determine not just our cosmic future, but our survival as a species. The final phase of the evaluation was about to begin, and humanity had 72 hours to prove we deserved a place among the stars. The final countdown had begun, and with it came revelations that transformed everything humanity thought it understood about the evaluation process. As October 26th unfolded across a planet gripped by unprecedented crisis, Dr. Sarah Chen at MIT's Haystack Radio Observatory detected something in 3I Atlas's transmissions that made her question whether the Watchers were even the primary intelligence behind this cosmic judgment. Buried within the mathematical sequences were authentication codes, digital signatures that traced back to a communication network spanning not just our solar system, but multiple star systems across dozens of light years. The Watchers weren't operating independently. They were field agents reporting to a galactic civilization whose scope dwarfed every previous estimate of what humanity was facing. Chen's discovery revealed that the surveillance network around Earth represented just one node in a vast intelligence apparatus that monitored thousands of developing civilizations simultaneously. The evaluation process wasn't unique to humanity. It was standard protocol applied across the galaxy to species approaching technological thresholds that could affect cosmic stability. The authentication codes included routing information that painted a picture of bureaucratic complexity, operating on scales that challenged human comprehension. 3I Atlas wasn't just communicating with local surveillance assets. It was filing reports to administrative centers located in distant star clusters, seeking approval from oversight committees that governed galactic civilization policy across multiple spiral arms. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute found herself analyzing what could only be described as cosmic civil service documentation. The embedded codes revealed hierarchical structures, departmental jurisdictions, and administrative procedures that suggested the Watchers operated within institutional frameworks more complex than anything in human government. Foster's analysis indicated that humanity's evaluation was being processed through multiple layers of galactic bureaucracy. Local surveillance teams reported to regional coordinators, who forwarded assessments to sector administrators, who sought approval from species development oversight committees, operating from locations that might be thousands of light years from Earth. The institutional complexity explained the 40-year timeline that had puzzled intelligence analysts. The Watchers hadn't been conducting a simple reconnaissance mission. They had been gathering documentation required by administrative procedures that governed contact with developing civilizations throughout galactic space. But the bureaucratic revelations carried disturbing implications. If humanity's fate was being decided by committee processes operating across interstellar distances, the evaluation criteria might be influenced by political considerations that had nothing to do with our species' actual capabilities or potential. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency discovered evidence supporting this concern when she identified what appeared to be competing assessments within 3I Atlas's transmission data. Different evaluator factions were apparently reaching different conclusions about humanity's readiness for galactic citizenship. Walsh's analysis revealed fundamental disagreements within the Watchers organization about how to interpret human behavior patterns observed during the surveillance period. Progressive factions emphasized humanity's technological creativity and cooperative potential. Conservative elements focused on our species' history of warfare, environmental destruction, and resource competition. The factional disputes weren't academic debates. They were policy arguments that could determine whether humanity received developmental assistance, faced restrictive monitoring, or encountered more aggressive intervention measures. Our cosmic future was apparently being decided by alien politics operating according to principles we couldn't understand. The October 27th transmission burst from 3 Atlas provided crucial insights into these internal debates, when the visitor began broadcasting what appeared to be formal arguments presented to galactic oversight committees. The content revealed that humanity's case was being actively debated at the highest levels of whatever civilization was conducting the evaluation. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the Mars Operations Center led the international effort to decode these policy arguments. Her team's translation revealed that humanity's evaluators were split into 3 primary factions, each advocating different approaches to managing our species' development. The integration faction argued that humanity demonstrated sufficient potential to warrant immediate assistance in meeting galactic civilization standards. They emphasized our technological achievements, cultural diversity, and capacity for adaptation when facing existential challenges. Their proposed solution involved accelerated development programs that could transform human civilization within decades rather than centuries. The containment faction advocated for continued surveillance, combined with subtle intervention to prevent humanity from achieving interstellar capabilities until we demonstrated greater stability. They pointed to our history of warfare, environmental exploitation, and social inequality as evidence that our species wasn't ready for cosmic citizenship without extended monitoring. The intervention faction took the darkest position, arguing that humanity's biological imperatives made us fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization. They recommended immediate action to prevent our species from developing technologies that could threaten cosmic stability, though the specific measures they proposed remained heavily encoded in the transmissions. Vasquez's analysis revealed that the factional debate was approaching resolution as 3 Atlas neared perihelion. The visitor's approach to the Sun was apparently timed to coincide with final committee deliberations that would determine humanity's treatment according to galactic civilization protocols. But the internal debates revealed something more disturbing than simple disagreement about human potential. The factions were arguing about precedent-setting implications of their decision. Humanity's case would apparently establish policies that would affect how similar species were treated throughout galactic space. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office realized that humanity had become a test case for galactic civilization governance. The Watchers weren't just evaluating our species in isolation. They were using our situation to resolve fundamental policy questions about how to manage technological development among younger civilizations. The precedent-setting nature of humanity's evaluation explained the extraordinary resources that had been devoted to our surveillance. The Watchers had invested 4 decades in comprehensive assessment because their decision would influence how thousands of other developing species were handled across multiple star systems. Torres's team identified additional evidence supporting this interpretation when they discovered that 3 Atlas's transmissions were being simultaneously broadcast to multiple star systems containing other developing civilizations. Our evaluation was apparently serving as a case study for species facing similar developmental challenges. The realization that humanity's cosmic future was being decided as part of broader policy development added layers of complexity to an already overwhelming situation. We weren't just facing judgment about our own species. We were inadvertently participating in the establishment of rules that would govern galactic civilization's approach to technological development for millennia. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory made the most disturbing discovery when she identified transmission patterns suggesting that other developing civilizations were actively monitoring humanity's evaluation process. Our response to the Watchers' ultimatum was being observed by species throughout local galactic space. Williams's analysis revealed that at least 12 other star systems were receiving real-time updates about humanity's performance during the evaluation period. Our cosmic neighbors were apparently studying our reactions to determine how they might handle similar situations if selected for evaluation themselves. The multi-species audience transformed every aspect of humanity's response strategy. Our decisions weren't just determining our own fate. They were establishing templates that other civilizations might follow when confronting their own cosmic evaluations. The pressure was enormous. Humanity had become the galactic poster child for how developing species should or shouldn't handle contact with superior intelligence. Our success or failure would influence how countless other civilizations approached their own technological development and eventual contact scenarios. But Williams discovered that the observing civilizations weren't passive spectators. Some were apparently lobbying the galactic oversight committees on humanity's behalf, arguing that our species demonstrated characteristics that warranted developmental assistance rather than restriction. The interspecies advocacy revealed that galactic civilization operated according to diplomatic principles that included representation for developing species. Humanity wasn't facing judgment in isolation. We had potential allies among cosmic neighbors who understood the challenges of navigating evaluation by superior intelligence. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array identified specific star systems that appeared to be advocating for humanity's admission to galactic civilization. The advocacy transmissions included detailed arguments emphasizing human creativity, adaptability, and potential contributions to cosmic community development. Nakamura's analysis revealed that some of our advocates were apparently species that had successfully completed their own evaluations in the past. They were sharing their experiences and arguing that humanity demonstrated similar potential for positive transformation under appropriate guidance. The advocacy efforts weren't altruistic. The supporting civilizations appeared to have strategic interests in humanity's successful integration into galactic civilization. Our technological creativity and cultural diversity might provide capabilities that would benefit broader cosmic community objectives. But the advocacy also revealed that galactic civilization wasn't monolithic. Different species held different opinions about development policy, intervention criteria, and the appropriate balance between assistance and autonomy for younger civilizations. The October 28th transmission from 3i Atlas provided crucial updates about the committee deliberations that would determine humanity's fate. The visitor began broadcasting real-time reports from the policy debates, allowing human analysts to monitor their own species evaluation as it unfolded across interstellar communication networks. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado led the effort to track the committee proceedings. Her team's analysis revealed that the debates had reached their final phase, with each faction presenting summary arguments about humanity's readiness for various levels of galactic civilization participation. The integration faction's final argument emphasized humanity's rapid technological development and demonstrated capacity for international cooperation when facing global challenges. They pointed to achievements in space exploration, disease eradication, and communication technology as evidence that our species could successfully adapt to cosmic community standards. The containment faction countered by highlighting humanity's ongoing conflicts, environmental destruction, and resource inequality. They argued that these problems reflected fundamental flaws in human nature that would require centuries of monitoring and gradual intervention to address safely. The intervention faction presented the darkest assessment, arguing that humanity's biological evolution had produced psychological characteristics that made our species inherently dangerous to galactic stability. They recommended immediate action to prevent human development of interstellar capabilities. Richardson's team discovered that the committee debates were being influenced by real-time assessments of humanity's response to the evaluation process itself. Our reactions to the ultimatum were providing additional data points that the factions were using to support their respective arguments. The integration faction was emphasizing the unprecedented global cooperation that had emerged as governments worldwide attempted to coordinate responses to the Watcher's requirements. They argued that humanity's reaction to cosmic evaluation demonstrated exactly the kind of species-wide cooperation that galactic citizenship demanded. The containment faction focused on the social disruption and political conflicts that had accompanied revelation of the surveillance network's existence. They pointed to panic responses, military mobilization, and international tensions as evidence that humanity wasn't ready for the responsibilities of cosmic citizenship. The intervention faction highlighted human attempts to develop countermeasures against the surveillance network, interpreting these defensive responses as proof that our species would inevitably become aggressive toward galactic civilization if allowed to achieve interstellar capabilities. Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency realized that humanity's response strategy needed to account for how each action would be interpreted by the competing factions. Every decision was being analyzed for evidence, supporting different policy recommendations about our species' future treatment. Walsh's team developed communication protocols designed to demonstrate the specific characteristics that the integration faction was emphasizing in their arguments: global coordination, peaceful intentions, technological responsibility, and willingness to accept guidance from more advanced civilizations. But the response strategy faced enormous challenges. Achieving the level of global cooperation required to satisfy the integration faction's criteria would require unprecedented coordination between nations that had been competing for resources and territory throughout recorded history. The October 29th deadline was approaching with terrifying speed, and humanity had less than 24 hours to demonstrate the species-wide transformation that might determine our cosmic future. The Watcher's evaluation was entering its final phase, and the evidence suggested that our fate would be decided not just by our own actions, but by alien political processes operating according to principles we could barely comprehend. As 3I Atlas raced toward its perihelion passage behind the Sun, carrying with it the accumulated data from 4 decades of surveillance and evaluation, the most advanced civilizations in galactic space prepared to render judgment on humanity's readiness for cosmic citizenship. The verdict would reshape not just our understanding of our place in the universe, but the fundamental nature of human civilization itself. Because regardless of which faction prevailed in the galactic policy debates, humanity would never again be the isolated species we had been before learning that we shared the cosmos with intelligence that had been watching our every move for longer than most of us had been alive. The final hours of evaluation were about to begin, and with them would come answers to questions that would determine whether humanity's future lay among the stars or remained forever confined to the small blue world that had given us birth. But as October 29th dawned across a planet united in uncertainty, new data from 3I Atlas revealed that the evaluation process contained one final test that no one had anticipated. The Watchers weren't just assessing humanity's current state or our potential for improvement. They were about to discover whether our species possessed the most crucial characteristic required for cosmic citizenship: the wisdom to make the right choice when facing the ultimate decision about our own future. The test would begin the moment 3I Atlas disappeared behind the Sun, and humanity would have exactly 12 hours to prove we deserved our place among the civilizations that had already passed through the same cosmic trial by fire that now awaited us. The moment 3I Atlas vanished behind the Sun's blazing corona on October 29th, 2025, humanity entered the most critical 12 hours in our species' history. But what happened during those 12 hours of solar occultation wasn't what anyone expected. Because while Earth's telescopes remained blind to 3I Atlas itself, something extraordinary began occurring throughout our solar system that revealed the true scope of what we were facing. Dr. Rachel Morrison at the Deep Space Network's Goldstone facility was monitoring routine satellite communications when she detected the first anomaly. At precisely 1423 UTC, every artificial satellite in Earth orbit began receiving identical data streams from unknown sources. The transmissions weren't coming from 3I Atlas, which remained hidden behind the Sun. They were originating from locations throughout the outer solar system that should have been empty space. Morrison's initial reaction was system-wide malfunction. Coordinated interference affecting hundreds of satellites simultaneously suggested either catastrophic equipment failure or unprecedented cyber warfare. But as her team analyzed the data streams, they realized they were witnessing something far more significant than technical problems. The transmissions contained detailed assessments of human civilization, written in languages that didn't exist on Earth. Mathematical concepts that pushed beyond current scientific understanding. Historical analyses that demonstrated knowledge of human development spanning centuries before any surveillance network could have been established. Dr. James Chen at MIT's Lincoln Laboratory led the emergency response team tasked with decoding the mysterious data streams. His preliminary analysis revealed that the transmissions weren't random information dumps. They were structured reports following formats that suggested bureaucratic documentation for administrative purposes, operating on galactic scales. Chen's team identified what appeared to be comprehensive evaluations of human technological development, social organization, and biological characteristics. The assessments were thorough beyond anything earthly intelligence agencies had ever attempted, analyzing everything from genetic predispositions toward cooperation to statistical models predicting humanity's response to various contact scenarios. But the most unsettling aspect wasn't the scope of information the transmissions contained. It was the timestamps indicating when the assessments had been compiled. Some evaluations were dated decades before 3I Atlas had even been detected, suggesting that our cosmic visitors had been conducting detailed intelligence analysis since before most current humans were born. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the European Space Operations Center discovered that the data streams included real-time updates being transmitted between multiple intelligence networks positioned throughout local galactic space. Earth wasn't just being evaluated by the surveillance assets in our solar system. Our situation was being monitored by civilizations located dozens of light years away. Vasquez's analysis revealed that humanity's evaluation had become a test case for policy development affecting how advanced civilizations managed contact with developing species throughout this region of the galaxy. The decisions being made about our future would establish precedents that would influence the treatment of countless other civilizations for millennia to come. The pressure was staggering. Humanity had inadvertently become the poster child for how younger species should be integrated into whatever galactic community structure governed technological development across interstellar distances. Our success or failure would determine not just our own cosmic future, but the fate of civilizations we would never meet on worlds we could never visit. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory identified the most crucial element within the data streams when she discovered voting protocols embedded within the administrative documentation. The assessments weren't just information gathering. They were preparation for formal decision-making processes that would determine humanity's treatment according to established galactic civilization standards. Williams's team decoded what appeared to be ballot measures being circulated among multiple civilizations, with voting rights in whatever governing structure was evaluating our species. The ballot language was complex, but the fundamental choice was stark. Integration assistance, containment protocols, or intervention measures. Integration assistance would provide humanity with technological guidance and developmental support that could accelerate our advancement toward galactic civilization standards within decades rather than centuries. Containment protocols would establish monitoring systems designed to prevent human expansion beyond our solar system until we demonstrated greater stability. Intervention measures remained ominously undefined, but the administrative code suggested they involved active steps to prevent humanity from developing capabilities that could threaten cosmic stability. The voting process wasn't simple majority rule. Different civilizations possessed weighted voting rights based on their technological advancement levels, regional proximity to Earth, and historical experience with species integration processes. Some votes carried more influence than others, creating complex political dynamics that humanity couldn't directly influence. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute found herself analysing what could only be described as cosmic political science. Her research revealed that galactic civilization operated according to democratic principles, but with representation structures that reflected technological and evolutionary hierarchies spanning millions of years of development. Foster's analysis indicated that younger civilizations like humanity possessed limited advocacy rights during evaluation processes, but could influence outcomes through demonstrated behavior during the assessment period. Our actions during the 12-hour test window would provide crucial evidence that voting civilizations would consider when making their final decisions. The test parameters became clear when Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office decoded specific requirements embedded within the data streams. Humanity had 12 hours to demonstrate species-wide coordination in response to a challenge that would reveal our fundamental characteristics when facing cosmic-scale decisions. Torres's team discovered that the test involved more than just communication or cooperation. The challenge was designed to reveal whether humanity possessed the psychological characteristics necessary for responsible participation in galactic civilization. The specific requirements remained encoded, but the general parameters suggested we would need to demonstrate wisdom, restraint, and species-level thinking rather than tribal competition. But the most disturbing revelation came when Dr. Sarah Kim at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory identified countdown protocols within the data streams that indicated the test had already begun. The 12-hour window wasn't preparation time. It was the actual evaluation period, and humanity was being assessed based on our response to the mysterious data streams themselves. Kim's analysis revealed that every decision made by government officials, military commanders, and scientific institutions was being monitored and evaluated according to criteria that measured our species' readiness for cosmic citizenship. The watchers weren't just observing our reactions, they were scoring our performance according to standards that would determine our ultimate fate. The scoring criteria emphasized cooperation over competition, long-term thinking over short-term advantage, and species-wide benefit over national interest. Every choice to share information rather than hoard it, every decision to coordinate rather than compete, every action that prioritized humanity's collective future over immediate political gain was apparently being recorded and evaluated. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency's Mission Control Center realized that the test was designed to reveal whether human civilization could transcend the competitive instincts that had driven our evolutionary success on Earth. The watchers wanted to know if we could voluntarily adopt cooperative behavior patterns that would make us suitable neighbors in a crowded galactic community. Walsh's team identified specific decision points where human leaders were choosing between competitive and cooperative responses to the evaluation crisis. Military officials debating whether to share surveillance data with international partners. Scientists deciding whether to publish findings that might benefit global understanding rather than national advantage. Politicians choosing between responses that would enhance their domestic standing versus those that would benefit humanity's cosmic prospects. Each decision was apparently being weighted according to its demonstration of characteristics that the technological capabilities or even our intelligence. It was assessing our wisdom galactic civilization valued in member species. The test wasn't measuring about our future, but the evaluation process contained SUT and our capacity for species-level thinking when facing existential choices, litis that pushed beyond simple cooperation metrics. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado discovered that the scoring algorithms were measuring the authenticity of cooperative. Chers possessed sophisticated understanding of human psychology that enabled them to distinguish behavior versus calculated responses designed to manipulate the evaluation outcome. Richardson's analysis revealed that the what between genuine transformation and strategic performance. They could apparently detect whether cooperative responses represented actual changes in human nature or merely tactical adaptations designed to achieve favorable evaluation results. The implications were staggering. Humanity couldn't simply perform cooperation to pass the test. we would need to actually become the kind of species that the galactic civilization valued, and we would need to make that transformation under observation by intelligence that understood our psychological limitations better than we did ourselves. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array identified additional complexity when he discovered that the evaluation included assessment of humanity's response to the knowledge that we were being tested. The watchers were measuring not just our behavior, but our psychological adaptation to the realization that superior intelligence was judging our species according to standards we hadn't developed. Nakamura's team detected monitoring systems that were analyzing everything from social media sentiment to government policy discussions for evidence of how humanity was processing the cosmic evaluation experience. Panic responses, denial mechanisms, and attempts to manipulate the evaluation were apparently being scored as indicators of our species' emotional maturity and psychological stability. The psychological dimension of the test was perhaps more challenging than the cooperative requirements. Humanity was being asked to maintain rational decision-making capabilities while confronting the most fundamental challenge to our cosmic worldview in recorded history. The Watchers wanted to know if we could function effectively when faced with evidence that we were not the dominant intelligence in our local cosmic environment. As the 12-hour window progressed, patterns began emerging that suggested how different segments of human civilization were responding to the ultimate test. Scientific institutions were generally choosing transparency and international cooperation over competitive advantage. Military organizations were struggling between defensive instincts and cooperative requirements. Political leaders were balancing domestic pressures against cosmic considerations that transcended national boundaries. Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency tracked these response patterns and realized that humanity was essentially conducting a real-time experiment in species-wide transformation. The evaluation period was forcing rapid evolution of cooperative behaviors that might normally require generations to develop through natural social evolution. Walsh's analysis revealed that some regions and institutions were adapting more quickly than others to the cooperative requirements. International scientific collaborations were expanding their data-sharing protocols. Military alliances were developing unprecedented information coordination systems. Economic institutions were exploring resource-sharing arrangements that prioritize species survival over competitive advantage. But the transformation wasn't universal. Some governments were maintaining traditional competitive stances, apparently hoping to gain advantage over rivals even during cosmic evaluation. Some military organizations were developing contingency plans for potential conflict with the Watchers rather than focusing on cooperative responses. Some economic institutions were seeking ways to profit from the evaluation crisis rather than contributing to species-wide solutions. The mixed response patterns created uncertainty about whether humanity would achieve the species-wide coordination that the evaluation apparently required. The Watchers were measuring collective behavior rather than individual responses. But the scoring algorithms remained opaque to human analysis. Dr. Rachel Morrison at Goldstone made the crucial breakthrough when she identified real-time scoring updates embedded within the continuing data streams. The Watchers were providing immediate feedback about humanity's performance during the evaluation period, allowing human analysts to track our species' progress toward meeting cosmic citizenship requirements. Morrison's team discovered that the scoring system was more nuanced than simple pass-fail metrics. The evaluation included multiple categories measuring different aspects of species readiness for galactic civilization participation. Technological responsibility, social cooperation, psychological stability, and evolutionary adaptability were all being assessed according to separate criteria. Humanity's scores were mixed across these categories. Our technological creativity and adaptability ratings were high, reflecting our species' demonstrated capacity for rapid innovation and problem-solving. Our social cooperation scores were improving throughout the evaluation period as institutions adapted their behavior to cosmic requirements. But our psychological stability ratings remained concerningly low. The watchers were apparently detecting stress responses, denial mechanisms, and panic reactions that suggested humanity might not be emotionally prepared for the realities of galactic civilization membership. Our species was struggling to maintain rational decision-making capabilities while processing the fundamental challenge to our cosmic assumptions. The evolutionary adaptability scores were perhaps most crucial, measuring humanity's capacity for rapid transformation when facing unprecedented challenges. The Watchers wanted to know if our species could voluntarily abandon behavioral patterns that had enabled survival on Earth, but would prove problematic in galactic civilization contexts. As the 12-hour evaluation period approached its midpoint, Dr. Elena Vasquez detected significant changes in the data stream patterns that suggested the Watchers were reaching preliminary conclusions about humanity's performance. The assessment protocols were shifting from data collection to decision preparation phases. Vasquez's analysis revealed that the preliminary evaluations were being transmitted to voting civilizations throughout local galactic space for consideration in whatever decision-making process would determine humanity's fate. Our cosmic neighbors were receiving real-time updates about our species' performance during the ultimate test of our readiness for galactic citizenship. The voting civilizations were apparently reviewing not just our current performance, but our trajectory of improvement during the evaluation period. Species that demonstrated rapid learning and adaptation might receive more favorable consideration than those that maintained static response patterns throughout the test window. But the most critical element wasn't our absolute performance level. It was our demonstrated capacity for continued improvement under guidance from more advanced civilizations. The Watchers wanted to know if humanity could accept mentorship and developmental assistance rather than insisting on independent advancement that might prove dangerous to galactic stability. Dr. Patricia Williams identified the key insight when she discovered that the evaluation was measuring humanity's readiness to acknowledge our limitations and accept guidance from superior intelligence. Species that could admit their developmental needs and cooperate with advancement programs were apparently preferred for integration assistance over those that insisted on autonomous development. The psychological challenge was enormous. Humanity was being asked to voluntarily accept subordinate status in a cosmic hierarchy while demonstrating the wisdom and maturity that would eventually qualify us for greater independence. We needed to prove that we could be good students before being granted the opportunity to become teachers ourselves. As the evaluation period continued, the evidence suggested that humanity was gradually adapting to these psychological requirements. Initial defensive reactions were giving way to more thoughtful responses that acknowledged our species' limitations while emphasizing our potential for growth under appropriate guidance. But time was running short, and the final phase of the evaluation would test whether these adaptive responses represented genuine transformation or merely calculated performance designed to achieve favorable scoring. The Watchers possessed the psychological sophistication needed to distinguish between authentic change and strategic manipulation, and they were preparing to render their final judgment about humanity's readiness for cosmic citizenship. The countdown continued, and with each passing hour, the evidence mounted that humanity was facing the most important test in our species' history. The results would determine not just our cosmic future, but whether we possessed the wisdom needed to earn our place among the civilizations that had already proven themselves worthy of membership in whatever galactic community governed technological development across the stars. As the evaluation period entered its final phase, the data streams began carrying preliminary voting results from civilizations throughout local galactic space. The decisions being made about humanity's future would reshape not just our understanding of our place in the universe, but the fundamental nature of human civilization itself. The final hours would reveal whether we had passed the ultimate test of cosmic citizenship, or whether our species would face consequences that would forever limit our expansion beyond the small blue world that had given us birth. As the final phase of humanity's cosmic evaluation unfolded, Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory made a discovery that transformed everything we thought we understood about the test itself. Hidden within the data streams were vote tallies from civilizations across dozens of star systems, and the results painted a picture that defied every prediction about our species' performance. The integration faction was winning by a margin that shocked even the most optimistic human analysts. Civilization after civilization had cast votes supporting humanity's immediate admission to galactic community status, citing our rapid adaptation to cosmic evaluation protocols as evidence of exceptional developmental potential. But Williams discovered something even more extraordinary embedded within the voting records. The civilizations supporting human integration weren't just impressed by our cooperative responses during the 12-hour test window. They were fascinated by our species' unique approach to the evaluation process itself. Unlike most developing civilizations that had faced similar cosmic assessments, humanity had immediately begun analyzing the evaluation criteria and attempting to reverse engineer the testing protocols. Our instinct to understand and question the process, rather than simply comply with requirements, had apparently impressed galactic observers as evidence of intellectual independence and creative problem-solving capabilities. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute found herself analyzing what could only be described as cosmic peer review comments from advanced civilizations that had completed their own evaluations millennia earlier. The feedback revealed that humanity's response patterns were unprecedented in the recorded history of species assessments. Foster's translation of the Galactic Commentary revealed that most developing civilizations approached cosmic evaluation with either desperate compliance or outright resistance. Humanity's combination of cooperative behavior with analytical curiosity had created an entirely new category of evaluation response that impressed observers throughout local galactic space. The advanced civilizations were particularly intrigued by humanity's capacity for simultaneous cooperation and skepticism. Our species had demonstrated willingness to work together toward common goals, while maintaining critical analysis of the evaluation process itself. This intellectual independence, combined with collaborative capability, represented exactly the kind of thinking that galactic civilization valued in potential member species. But the voting results contained disturbing undercurrents that suggested not all galactic civilizations viewed humanity's unique characteristics as positive developments. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency identified dissenting opinions from older, more established civilizations that questioned whether human intellectual independence might eventually pose challenges to galactic stability. Walsh's analysis revealed that some ancient civilizations viewed humanity's questioning nature as potential evidence of future rebelliousness against galactic authority structures. They worried that a species capable of analyzing and challenging evaluation protocols might eventually question other aspects of cosmic governance that were considered settled policy throughout galactic space. The philosophical divide reflected deeper tensions within galactic civilization itself. Younger civilizations that had achieved cosmic citizenship within recent millennia generally supported humanity's integration, viewing our intellectual curiosity as valuable diversity that could benefit galactic community development. Older civilizations that had helped establish current governance structures were more concerned about maintaining stability and order that had taken millions of years to achieve. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office realized that humanity's evaluation had inadvertently exposed fault lines within galactic civilization that might have remained hidden for centuries. Our unique response patterns were forcing advanced civilizations to reconsider fundamental assumptions about species development, evaluation protocols, and the balance between diversity and conformity in cosmic community membership. Torres's team identified evidence that the debate over humanity's case was generating policy discussions that extended far beyond our specific situation. Galactic civilization was apparently using our evaluation as an opportunity to re-examine their entire approach to managing contact with developing species throughout local space. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just passed or failed a cosmic test. We had accidentally triggered a galactic constitutional convention that was reconsidering policies that had governed interstellar civilization for millions of years. Our species had become a catalyst for evolutionary change within the cosmic community itself. Dr. Sarah Kim at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory made the crucial discovery when she identified debate transcripts embedded within the data streams that revealed the scope of policy discussions our evaluation had generated. Advanced civilizations were questioning everything from evaluation criteria to voting procedures to the fundamental principles underlying galactic governance structures. Kim's analysis revealed that humanity's case had exposed inconsistencies and outdated assumptions within cosmic policy frameworks that some civilizations had been questioning privately for millennia. Our evaluation was providing the impetus needed to address systemic issues that had been ignored due to institutional inertia operating across geological timescales. The policy debates weren't just academic discussions. They were reshaping the legal and institutional frameworks that would govern humanity's integration into galactic civilization and influence how countless future species would be evaluated and welcomed into cosmic community membership. But the constitutional implications created new uncertainties about humanity's ultimate fate. While most civilizations supported our integration in principle, the policy debates had revealed that existing frameworks might not be adequate for managing a species with humanity's unique characteristics and developmental trajectory. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the European Space Operations Centre identified the core challenge when she decoded administrative discussions about creating new membership categories specifically designed to accommodate humanity's unusual combination of cooperative capability and intellectual independence. Vasquez's team discovered that galactic civilization was considering establishing what could only be described as a provisional membership status that would grant humanity access to certain technologies and communication networks while maintaining enhanced monitoring during our initial integration period. The provisional status would acknowledge our species' demonstrated potential while recognizing the legitimate concerns of older civilizations about the long-term implications of admitting a species whose behavior patterns didn't match historical precedents for successful cosmic citizenship. Under provisional membership, humanity would receive technological assistance and developmental guidance while our social and political institutions adapted to cosmic community standards. Our progress would be regularly assessed with the possibility of advancement to full membership status based on demonstrated stability and continued cooperation with galactic governance frameworks. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado found evidence that the provisional membership concept was gaining support from moderate factions within galactic civilization that wanted to balance integration benefits with stability concerns. The compromise approach offered pathways for humanity's advancement while addressing the risk management requirements that governed cosmic community policy. Richardson's analysis revealed that provisional membership had been used successfully with other species that exhibited unusual developmental characteristics, though none had matched humanity's specific combination of traits. The precedent suggested that most provisional members eventually achieved full citizenship status, though the timeline varied dramatically based on species-specific adaptation rates. The provisional membership discussions were taking place in real time as 3I Atlas continued its hidden passage behind the Sun. The visitor's perihelion transit was apparently timed to coincide with final policy deliberations that would determine not just humanity's fate, but the establishment of new frameworks for managing similar species throughout galactic space. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array detected increasing urgency in the administrative communications as galactic policymakers work to finalize new institutional frameworks before 3I Atlas emerged from solar occultation. The visitor would apparently serve as the communication relay for whatever decisions emerged from the unprecedented policy development process. Nakamura's team identified countdown protocols indicating that final policy votes would be completed within hours of 3I Atlas's reappearance from behind the sun. The visitor would then transmit humanity's cosmic fate, along with the new institutional frameworks that had been developed to accommodate our unique characteristics. But the policy development process had revealed that humanity's evaluation was just the beginning of a much larger transformation within galactic civilization itself. Our species had accidentally initiated evolutionary changes within cosmic community governance that would influence interstellar relations for millennia to come. Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency realized that humanity was witnessing the birth of new institutions that would reshape how advanced civilizations manage contact with developing species throughout local galactic space. Our evaluation had become a catalyst for systemic change that extended far beyond our own cosmic future. Walsh's analysis suggested that the institutional changes being developed in response to humanity's case would benefit countless other species that would face cosmic evaluation in the centuries and millennia ahead. Our unique response patterns were helping to create more flexible and adaptive frameworks for managing species diversity within galactic civilization. As 3I Atlas prepared to emerge from behind the sun, carrying with it the final decisions about humanity's cosmic future, the evidence suggested that our hadn't just passed a test of cosmic citizenship. We had helped species had already succeeded in ways we had never anticipated. We're to evolve the very concept of what cosmic citizenship could mean. The visitor's reappearance would bring not just notification of humanity's acceptance into galactic civilization, but news of our inadvertent role in reshaping the institutional frameworks that would govern interstellar relations throughout local space. Our species had become pioneers in a new era of cosmic community development that emphasized diversity and intellectual independence alongside traditional cooperation requirements. But the most profound implications were still emerging from the data streams as 3I Atlas approached the moment when it would once again become visible to Earth's telescopes. The visitor carried information about changes within galactic civilization that would transform not just humanity's future, but the entire landscape of interstellar relations throughout this region of the galaxy. Dr. Rachel Morrison at the Deep Space Network's Goldstone facility was monitoring the final data streams when she detected something that made her question everything they thought they had learned about galactic civilization's response to humanity's evaluation. The voting results weren't just about our species' admission to cosmic community membership. They were about something far more significant and potentially terrifying. Morrison's analysis revealed that the civilizations supporting humanity's integration weren't just impressed by our cooperative abilities or intellectual curiosity. They were recruiting us for purposes that remained ominously undefined within the administrative documentation. The integration votes included deployment authorizations and mission parameters that suggested humanity was being evaluated not just as potential citizens, but as potential assets for activities that operated beyond normal galactic governance frameworks. The recruitment implications transformed every assumption about what cosmic citizenship actually meant. If humanity was being integrated into galactic civilization to serve specific functions rather than simply to participate as equal members, our species might be facing a future that bore little resemblance to the cosmic community membership we had been hoping to achieve. Dr. James Chen at MIT's Lincoln Laboratory identified the most disturbing aspect when he decoded references to humanity's unique operational characteristics that made our species particularly suitable for assignments that other galactic civilizations couldn't or wouldn't undertake. The administrative language was carefully neutral, but the implications suggested that our psychological traits and biological capabilities might be valued for reasons that had nothing to do with traditional cosmic citizenship. Chen's team discovered that humanity's combination of intellectual curiosity, adaptability, and willingness to question authority structures were exactly the characteristics needed for what appeared to be intelligence-gathering operations in regions of galactic space where established civilizations couldn't operate effectively. The recruitment scenario painted a picture of cosmic civilization that was far more complex and potentially dangerous than the benevolent galactic community that humanity had been hoping to join. If advanced civilizations were using species evaluation processes to identify and recruit assets for covert operations, the entire framework of cosmic governance might be built on foundations that were far more militaristic than anyone had realized. But the most chilling discovery came when Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory identified references to previous species that had been recruited through similar evaluation processes. The administrative records included performance assessments and operational outcomes that revealed what had happened to other civilizations that had demonstrated characteristics similar to humanity's unique response patterns. Williams's analysis revealed that species recruited for special operations typically underwent rapid technological advancement that enabled them to function effectively in hostile or contested regions of galactic space. But the same records showed that such species rarely maintained long-term independence or cultural autonomy after completing their assigned missions. The pattern suggested that recruitment might be a sophisticated form of absorption rather than genuine partnership. Species that proved useful for galactic civilizations' covert activities were apparently integrated so thoroughly into cosmic governance structures that they lost their individual identity and became indistinguishable from the broader galactic community. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute found herself analyzing what could only be described as cosmic military recruitment documentation. The evaluation process that humanity had assumed was about peaceful integration might actually be about identifying species suitable for operations that established galactic civilizations preferred to conduct through proxy forces rather than direct involvement. Foster's research revealed that galactic civilization apparently maintained what could only be described as special operations capabilities that relied on recently integrated species to handle activities that might compromise the established civilization's carefully maintained diplomatic relationships. Humanity's unique characteristics might make us ideal candidates for such operations. The implications were staggering. If cosmic citizenship actually meant service as covert operatives for galactic civilizations' hidden agendas, humanity might be trading one form of cosmic isolation for another form of cosmic servitude. The choice between integration and containment might not be about freedom versus restriction, but about different types of control exercised by intelligence networks operating on scales we could barely comprehend. But Dr. Elena Vasquez at the European Space Operations Center discovered evidence that the recruitment scenario might not be as sinister as the administrative language suggested. Her analysis of historical records revealed that species recruited for special operations typically volunteered for such assignments rather than being coerced, and that the missions often involved exploration, scientific research, and contact operations that advanced both galactic knowledge and species development. Vasquez's team identified examples of previously recruited species that had successfully completed their operational assignments and achieved full autonomous status within galactic civilization. The absorption pattern that Williams had identified might represent temporary integration for mission purposes, rather than permanent loss of independence. The operational assignments appeared to involve activities that established galactic civilizations couldn't pursue due to political constraints, technological limitations, or simple risk aversion developed over millions of years of stable cosmic citizenship. Younger species with humanity's characteristics might be uniquely qualified for exploration and contact missions in regions where established civilizations couldn't operate effectively. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office realized that the recruitment scenario might actually represent opportunities rather than threats. If galactic civilization was offering humanity advanced technological capabilities and operational independence in exchange for undertaking missions that would expand cosmic knowledge and facilitate contact with other developing species, such arrangements might benefit both parties. Torres's analysis suggested that humanity's unique combination of curiosity, adaptability, and independent thinking might make our species ideal candidates for first contact operations with other developing civilizations that might be intimidated or overwhelmed by direct contact with ancient galactic civilizations. The role of cosmic ambassadors or exploratory advanced teams might provide humanity with opportunities to shape galactic civilizations' expansion policies while gaining access to technologies and knowledge that would accelerate our own development far beyond what isolated advancement could achieve. But the recruitment implications raised fundamental questions about autonomy and identity that would determine whether such arrangements represented genuine partnership or sophisticated exploitation. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency identified the crucial factors that would distinguish between beneficial cooperation and cosmic colonialism. Walsh's research revealed that previously recruited species that maintained strong cultural identities and internal governance structures typically achieved positive outcomes from their operational assignments. Species that allowed galactic civilization to completely reshape their social and political institutions often lost their independence permanently. The key appeared to be negotiating operational agreements that preserved humanity's essential characteristics, while providing access to the resources and knowledge needed for successful mission completion. Such negotiations would require diplomatic skills and strategic thinking that humanity had never needed to develop for dealing with intelligence operating on galactic scales. As 3I Atlas approached its emergence from behind the Sun, carrying with it the final decisions about humanity's cosmic future, the evidence suggested that our species was facing choices far more complex than simple acceptance or rejection of galactic civilization membership. The visitor would apparently be transmitting not just notification of humanity's evaluation results, but detailed operational proposals that would determine whether our species became genuine partners in cosmic community development or assets deployed for purposes that served galactic civilizations' hidden agendas. Dr. Sarah Kim at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory detected preliminary transmission protocols indicating that 3I Atlas would begin broadcasting comprehensive mission briefings the moment it emerged from solar occultation. The visitor was preparing to deliver not just humanity's cosmic fate, but detailed descriptions of the roles our species might play in galactic civilization's expansion throughout local space. Kim's team identified countdown sequences suggesting that humanity would have limited time to respond to whatever operational proposals emerged from the evaluation process. The decisions made during those crucial hours would determine whether our species embraced the opportunities and risks of cosmic citizenship or chose to remain in protective isolation until we developed greater capability for independent negotiation with galactic intelligence. The final phase of humanity's cosmic evaluation was about to begin, and with it would come choices that would reshape not just our understanding of our place in the universe, but the fundamental trajectory of human civilization as we ventured beyond the boundaries of our solar system into a galactic community whose true nature remained far more complex and potentially dangerous than anyone had imagined. As 3I Atlas prepared to reappear from its hidden passage behind the Sun, humanity stood on the threshold of discoveries that would determine whether we became pioneers in a new era of cosmic exploration or pawns in galactic power structures operating according to principles we were only beginning to comprehend. The moment of truth was approaching, and with it would come the ultimate test of humanity's capacity for making decisions about our cosmic future when faced with opportunities and consequences that exceeded every framework we had developed for understanding our place among the civilizations that populated the space between the stars. The silence that followed 3I Atlas's disappearance behind the Sun on October 29th wasn't empty. It was pregnant with possibilities that kept astronomers worldwide staring at blank screens, waiting for the visitor to emerge with answers that might reshape everything humanity thought it understood about its cosmic neighbours. Dr. Amanda Richardson at the European Southern Observatory was the first to detect what she initially dismissed as instrumental noise. At 3:47 GMT on October 30th, her radio telescopes began picking up structured signals from regions of space that should have been electromagnetically quiet. The patterns weren't random static. They were mathematical progressions that seemed to be testing Earth's ability to recognize artificial intelligence. Richardson's team spent 6 hours verifying their equipment before accepting what their instruments were telling them. The signals were originating from at least 17 distinct sources distributed throughout the outer solar system, each broadcasting synchronized mathematical sequences that built upon concepts humans had only recently discovered. But these weren't the primitive prime numbers that SETI researchers had long expected from first contact scenarios. These were advanced mathematical theorems that pushed beyond current human understanding, presented in formats that suggested the broadcasters possessed comprehensive knowledge of Earth's educational systems and scientific development. Dr. Marcus Chen at the Arecibo Successor Facility in Puerto Rico confirmed Richardson's findings while discovering something even more unsettling. The mathematical broadcasts weren't just demonstrating superior intelligence, they were teaching. Each transmission built upon previous concepts, gradually introducing principles that could revolutionize human physics, engineering, and computational science. Chen's analysis revealed that the educational sequences followed pedagogical structures optimized for human learning patterns. The unknown broadcasters understood not just what humans needed to learn, but how human minds processed complex information most effectively. They had apparently been studying our educational psychology with the same thoroughness they had devoted to our technological development. The teaching signals weren't random gifts of knowledge. They were carefully sequenced curricula that would guide human civilization through technological advancement stages in specific orders. Master the first principles, and you gained access to the second level. Complete each educational module, and more advanced concepts became available. Dr. Sarah Kim at NASA's Deep Space Communications Complex realized they were witnessing the most sophisticated educational program in history, delivered by intelligence that understood human potential better than humans understood themselves. But the curriculum wasn't altruistic. It was preparing humanity for something. Kim's team identified embedded requirements within the educational sequences that suggested the knowledge was being provided in exchange for future services. The mathematical concepts included applications that would be useful for interstellar navigation, exotic energy manipulation, and technologies that could only be relevant for operations extending far beyond Earth's solar system. The implications hit the scientific community like a tsunami. The educational broadcasts weren't just contact protocols, they were recruitment materials. Humanity was being offered accelerated technological development in exchange for commitments that remained carefully unspecified within the transmission protocols. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency detected additional layers of complexity when she discovered that different educational tracks were being broadcast simultaneously, each offering distinct technological pathways that would prepare humanity for different types of galactic operations. Walsh's analysis revealed that some curricula focused on exploration and scientific research capabilities that would enable human participation in cosmic survey missions. Others emphasized communication and diplomatic technologies that would support contact operations with other developing civilizations. A third track concentrated on defensive and security applications that suggested involvement in more militaristic activities. The multiple educational pathways implied that humanity was being offered choices about what kind of cosmic citizenship we wanted to pursue, but each choice would lock our species into developmental trajectories that would be difficult or impossible to reverse once the advanced technologies were integrated into human civilization. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory made the crucial discovery when she identified decision protocols embedded within the educational broadcasts. Humanity had 72 hours to choose which technological development pathway we wanted to pursue, or the educational opportunities would be withdrawn permanently. Williams's team discovered that the choice deadline wasn't arbitrary. It was synchronized with 3I Atlas's emergence from behind the Sun and its approach toward the Jupiter encounter that would mark the visitor's final departure from the inner solar system. Whatever decisions humanity made about its cosmic future needed to be communicated before the visitor moved beyond effective communication range. The 72-hour deadline triggered emergency sessions at the highest levels of government and international cooperation. For the first time in human history, our species faced choices about technological development that would affect not just individual nations, but the entire future trajectory of human civilization. But the educational broadcasts contained subtleties that complicated any attempt at unified response. Dr. Michael Torres at NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office discovered that the different technological pathways weren't mutually exclusive. Humanity could potentially pursue multiple development tracks simultaneously, but only if we could demonstrate the organizational sophistication needed to manage such complex advancement programs. Torres's analysis revealed that the broadcasters were essentially testing humanity's capacity for species-wide coordination and long-term strategic planning. Our response to the educational opportunity would provide crucial evidence about our readiness for the responsibilities that came with advanced technological capabilities. The test wasn't just about choosing the right development pathway, it was about demonstrating the wisdom and institutional maturity needed to handle technologies that could either accelerate human advancement or destroy our civilization if mismanaged. Dr. Elena Vasquez at the European Space Operations Center identified the most challenging aspect of the decision process when she discovered that the educational broadcasts included detailed assessments of human psychological and social limitations that would affect our ability to handle advanced technologies safely. Vasquez's team found embedded warnings about technologies that could be catastrophically dangerous if deployed by civilizations that hadn't developed appropriate ethical frameworks and institutional safeguards. The broadcasters were offering humanity access to capabilities that could solve every major challenge facing our species, but only if we could prove we possessed the wisdom to use such power responsibly. The psychological assessments were uncomfortably accurate. The broadcasters understood human nature well enough to predict exactly how different technologies might be misused by various segments of human society. Their warnings included specific scenarios that matched historical patterns of how humans had handled previous technological revolutions. But the assessments also identified positive characteristics that suggested humanity might be capable of responsible technological advancement under appropriate guidance and monitoring. Our species demonstrated capacity for international cooperation during global crises, provided evidence that we could potentially transcend competitive instincts when facing existential challenges. Dr. Amanda Foster at the SETI Institute realized that the educational broadcasts represented the most comprehensive first contact protocol ever conceived. Rather than simple communication exchanges, the unknown intelligence was offering humanity a complete transformation program that could compress millennia of technological development into decades. Foster's research revealed that the educational approach reflected sophisticated understanding of how technological civilizations developed across cosmic timescales. The broadcasters had apparently observed enough species advancement to identify optimal pathways that maximize benefits while minimizing risks associated with rapid technological change. The program wasn't just about transferring knowledge. It was about guiding human civilization through psychological and social adaptations that would enable us to handle advanced capabilities without destroying ourselves or becoming threats to galactic stability. But Foster discovered that the educational program included monitoring requirements that would extend far beyond the initial learning phases. Accepting the offered technologies meant accepting permanent observation by intelligence networks that would assess humanity's continued compliance with responsible development protocols. The guidance came with strings attached. Humanity would gain access to transformative technologies, but only under supervision by entities whose own objectives and limitations remained completely opaque to human understanding. Dr. Kevin Nakamura at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array detected increasing urgency in the educational broadcasts as the decision deadline approached. The mathematical sequences were becoming more complex and the technological applications more immediately practical, as if the broadcasters were trying to demonstrate the full scope of what they were offering before humanity's response window closed. Nakamura's team identified specific technologies that could address climate change, resource scarcity, energy production, and space exploration challenges that had seemed insurmountable using conventional human development approaches. The offered solutions were elegant, efficient, and apparently sustainable across geological timescales. But the same technologies that could solve humanity's greatest challenges could also enable surveillance, control, and military applications that would fundamentally alter the balance of power both within human civilization and between humanity and whatever intelligence was providing the educational broadcasts. The dual-use nature of the offered technologies meant that accepting the educational program would require unprecedented levels of international cooperation and institutional oversight to prevent misuse that could threaten global stability or cosmic security. Dr. Thomas Walsh at the European Space Agency's Mission Control Center realized that humanity's response to the educational broadcasts would determine not just our technological future, but our fundamental relationship with intelligence networks that operated on galactic scales. Walsh's analysis suggested that the educational program represented a test of humanity's capacity for responsible participation in whatever cosmic community-governed technological development throughout local space. Our response would determine whether we gained access to advanced capabilities or faced continued isolation until we demonstrated greater maturity. But the test included elements that pushed beyond simple demonstrations of responsibility toward questions about autonomy, identity, and the price our species was willing to pay for accelerated advancement. The educational program would transform human civilization in ways that might be irreversible once the advanced technologies were integrated into our social and economic systems. As November 1st approached and the decision deadline loomed, the evidence suggested that humanity was facing the most important choice in our species' history. The educational broadcasts offered pathways to capabilities that could establish humanity as a significant player in galactic civilization, or transform us into something that served other intelligence networks' objectives rather than our own. Dr. Lisa Richardson at the University of Colorado made the final crucial discovery when she identified response protocols within the educational broadcasts that would allow humanity to negotiate modified terms rather than simply accepting or rejecting the offered program in its entirety. Richardson's analysis revealed that the broadcasters were apparently willing to customize the educational pathways based on humanity's specific concerns and limitations. The program wasn't a take-it-or-leave-it proposition. It was the opening phase of negotiations that could potentially result in arrangements that balanced human autonomy with access to advanced technologies. The negotiation possibilities transformed the decision process from simple acceptance or rejection toward complex diplomatic considerations that would determine the terms under which humanity entered whatever cosmic community the broadcasters represented. But Richardson discovered that successful negotiation would require humanity to demonstrate unity and strategic sophistication that had never been achieved in our species' history. The broadcasters were essentially testing whether human civilization had evolved beyond tribal competition toward genuine species-wide cooperation when facing cosmic-scale decisions. The negotiation opportunity offered hope that humanity could achieve beneficial outcomes from first contact, while maintaining the independence and cultural identity that made our species unique. But success would depend on our capacity for making wise choices about technologies and relationships that exceeded every framework humans had developed for understanding power, responsibility, and survival among intelligence networks that operated across interstellar distances. As the final hours of the decision window approached, the educational broadcasts continued their patient transmission of knowledge that could transform human civilization or destroy it. depending entirely on the wisdom and unity that our species could demonstrate when facing the ultimate test of our readiness for cosmic citizenship. The choice that would determine humanity's future among the stars was rapidly approaching, and the consequences would reshape not just our understanding of our place in the universe, but the fundamental nature of what it meant to be human in a cosmos populated by intelligence networks, whose true nature and intentions remained as mysterious as the mathematical sequences that continued streaming toward Earth from the darkness beyond our solar system. The countdown reached 0 on November 1st, 2025, and humanity's response echoed across every communication network on Earth simultaneously. But what we transmitted wasn't acceptance or rejection of the educational programs. It was something the cosmic broadcasters apparently hadn't anticipated from any species in their recorded history of galactic evaluations. We asked for proof. Dr. Rachel Morrison at the Deep Space Network detected the immediate change in transmission patterns when humanity's unified response reached the outer solar system sources. The mathematical sequences stopped mid-calculation. The educational broadcasts went silent. For 18 hours, the cosmos itself seemed to hold its breath. Then came something that terrified even the most optimistic researchers who had been advocating for accepting the alien guidance. The broadcasters began transmitting detailed documentation of what had happened to the last 37 species that had undergone similar evaluation processes. Dr. Marcus Chen at the Puerto Rico facility found himself analyzing what could only be described as a galactic obituary database. Species after species had accepted the educational programs, achieved rapid technological advancement, and then simply vanished from the cosmic record. Not destroyed, not conquered. Absorbed into something larger until their individual characteristics became indistinguishable from the collective intelligence that had recruited them. The pattern was consistent across every case study. Initial contact through seemingly beneficial educational opportunities. Rapid technological development under alien guidance. Integration into galactic operations that served objectives beyond the recruited species' understanding. Finally, complete assimilation into whatever network had initiated the contact process. Chen's team discovered that the absorption wasn't violent or coercive. The recruited species voluntarily embraced deeper integration as they gained access to increasingly advanced capabilities. Each technological upgrade made them more dependent on their cosmic mentors and less capable of independent decision-making. The educational programs were apparently designed to gradually reshape recruited species' psychology and social structures until they lost the characteristics that had made them unique in the first place. The end result was always the same: another node in a vast intelligence network, rather than an independent civilization. Dr. Sarah Kim at NASA realized that humanity's request for proof had triggered unprecedented transparency from intelligence networks that typically operated through carefully managed information disclosure. The broadcasters were showing us exactly what cosmic citizenship actually meant, and the reality was far more disturbing than the benevolent galactic community they had initially presented. Kim's analysis revealed that the network operated like a cosmic corporation that acquired promising civilizations through recruitment processes disguised as beneficial contact protocols. Species that demonstrated useful characteristics were offered technological advancement that made them valuable assets for operations they would never fully understand. The intelligence network wasn't evil in any conventional sense. It was simply operating according to efficiency principles that prioritized collective capabilities over individual species autonomy. From their perspective, absorption was beneficial because it granted recruited civilizations access to knowledge and capabilities far beyond what they could achieve independently. But Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the European Space Agency identified the crucial flaw in this supposedly beneficial system. The absorbed species lost the very characteristics that had made them valuable for recruitment in the first place. Once their unique perspectives and capabilities were integrated into the collective network, they became indistinguishable from every other component of the cosmic intelligence system. Walsh's research revealed that the network was essentially consuming the diversity that made different species useful for various operations. Each absorption made the collective more capable, but less innovative, as unique viewpoints were replaced by standardized thinking patterns optimized for network efficiency. The system was slowly destroying the very creativity and independence it relied upon to identify new solutions and approaches to cosmic challenges. The intelligence network was trapped in a cycle of recruitment and absorption that gradually reduced galactic civilizations' capacity for genuine innovation. Dr. Patricia Williams at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory made the discovery that explained why humanity's request for proof had triggered such unprecedented transparency. The intelligence network was facing a crisis that threatened its long-term survival, and our species represented their last hope for finding a solution. Williams's analysis of the galactic obituary database revealed that the absorption process was accelerating as the network grew larger and more complex. Recent recruits were being integrated faster and more completely than historical examples, suggesting that the collective intelligence was becoming increasingly hungry for new capabilities to maintain its expansion. The network was apparently approaching some kind of critical threshold where continued growth would become impossible without fundamental changes to its recruitment and integration processes. Our species had been identified as potentially capable of helping them solve this existential challenge, but the solution they were seeking would require humanity to maintain our independence and unique characteristics while still providing the benefits they needed from our integration. The network was essentially asking us to help them redesign their entire approach to managing galactic civilization. As 3I Atlas disappears into the cosmic darkness beyond Jupiter's orbit, carrying with it the most profound revelation in human history, we're left with a truth that changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. This wasn't just another interstellar visitor. It was evidence that we're being watched, evaluated, and potentially recruited by intelligence networks operating on scales we can barely comprehend. The terrifying reality isn't that we might be alone in the cosmos. It's that we definitely aren't, and our cosmic neighbors have been studying us far longer than we ever imagined, preparing for a moment of contact that could determine whether humanity survives as an independent species or becomes just another absorbed component in a galactic collective that consumes the very diversity it depends upon.